I've been a founder, entrepreneur for a long time. 7 VC-funded companies, sold 3.5. So you can tell.
You need to use them to know the other one. That's one spelled B, and the other one is spelled B.
I see. So as I say, you can do the math. But the joy and pain of startup, I am not a developer anymore because I was a very shitty developer. But I began in the mid-90s when it was pretty easy to hack things together and to get started and do a lot of fun stuff. I've been very, very technical though and stayed that way in my career. So in technical product strategy, had a product, raising money around really deep tech stuff, and so was early in process automation, was very early, very, very early, especially in Germany, in cloud before AWS was really even just getting started. So way too early for Germany. Early with machine learning and predictive analytics for sort of coming down market, but I think my specialty is in building badass teams of engineers that surround our vision and our strategy and our way of going forward. And always one thing for me has been that building engineering teams is made up of diverse teams, not just a bunch of straight white dudes that are in their 20s, but a mix of people and perspectives and cultures and gender and everything else. And so doing that in Germany has been a lot easier. You know the problems going on in the US. But let me give you a little bit of background first, as I'm not new working with SAP. I had a little history with SAP Innovation Center back when they opened up. So with hanging out with Bill and Hasso and Vishal when he was still here. Sadly, he was sort of the master of the SAP Focus program. And there's me in the middle with all of them on this day of the opening center in Potsdam. And the reason is we were one of the early members of the SAP Startup Focus Company, or Focus Program, with my last company called Retention Grid and Avari. And while doing marketing automation and predictive analytics for helping people sell more stuff wasn't that sexy in the big markets, for mid-sized companies and smaller companies, that was a really big problem. So we caught the interest of Jürgen, who was running the Innovation Center at that time, and we got to get deep within their organization, work with their data scientists, work with HANA in ways that was really painful and really painful, but we got a lot of really, really cool stuff from that. And we began with Kmeans clustering. We moved into doing a lot more anomaly detection around some of the data we had, because we had 25,000 shops connected to us with all of their transactional history across over 200 million customers, including all of their daily interactions with the sites. So the data set was actually quite interesting, and it got the attention of the teams out in Potsdam. And we then moved into an upmarket product called Avari, and it basically made it very easy. So we got really down to the single level personalization of products and time of message that we integrated into the major marketing clouds. And we're one of the first handful of companies that were certified by SAP to go to market. However, markets change. And despite having great support by a lot of people and all the right things, this was the half exit. So we got out okay, but it didn't make anybody rich. But it's part of the process of doing what we do and the risk of doing this. But in that process, I learned a lot about engaging with larger organizations, and I never thought I would be partnering with SAP. Never thought I would find the organization to be so progressive, and would have met so many amazing people who supported us in our business. And so, and that plus the M&A process we went through with this made me start thinking about things in a little different way. And so after the acquisition, I took some time off to sober up, lose a little bit of weight, and explore how, this is how you made my 7th, what do I do next? How do I do this differently? How can we have less waste, more success? And one of the things I found in my research is that in the US anyway, only less than 30% of companies actually have a partnership with a corporate partner. And I don't mean being an accelerator. I mean a really strategic relationship like we established with SAP and the Innovation Center. The benefit we got was not just from focus, it was way more because we had a team of around 7 people out in Potsdam that were working with us and our CTO and our engineering team. Those companies who do have a 3x greater chance of exit. So when 1 in 10 fail, that's a pretty significant improvement. So we began thinking about different ways of doing what we do. And so I found a set of some former colleagues as well as some other serial entrepreneurs, and we formed 2 different groups. These are basically venture studios or company builders, or however you want to describe that, but groups that are designed around building startups at scale and having a more well-defined process and to know when it's go, no-go, shared services, process mastery, and still the art of entrepreneurship and idea selection and vision and all those things. So in this, not only do we do this for ourselves, we also partner with larger organizations who are going through digital transformation or disruption, or they're terrified of the fact that their business model is being Uberized, or all those things. And they're all trying different things, and many of them now are beginning to partner with external venture builders like us. So we kind of put it simply, we build companies for money. Some are ourselves, mostly those are in partnership with other organizations. So, leading to this. So this was sort of my test. Could my process that I spent a year defining work on a business that was not mine, something I'm passionate about? Lesbians Who Tech is on a giant organization, but it's quite successful, quite profitable. Liana Pittsford has been a good friend. She's been an investor, and so let me give you a bit of background. Lesbians Who Tech is about a 5-year-old organization. Today is around 30,000 power, badass women all over the world, and it is, yes, there's a strong LGBTQ component, but it's also a strong gender component and just diversity and inclusion in general. They do 2 major summits in the US, one New York, one San Francisco. The kind of speakers and people they have coming there, these are tech conferences. These aren't D&I conferences. They're really impressive. In fact, SAP's had a long-term partnership there. Moya Watson in the US on the cloud platform team, she's been the sort of liaison between Lesbians Who Tech and SAP. And Bill McDermott has been a real proponent of this, and obviously getting into Glassdoor top 10 says a lot about how the organization is focusing on ensuring that you have a great organization, great culture, and that means all the things that diversity and inclusion mean. So Leanne, coming from the history of Lesbians Who Tech, then beginning Tech Jobs Tour, which is a 50-city roadshow done in partnership with Megan Smith. She's the 3rd Chief Technology Officer of the United States under Obama, has left recently for all kinds of reasons. And so together, there's this Tech Jobs Tour is going across the 2 cities all over the US initially, then we'll go international. And it's about helping those that are typically underrepresented in the bro culture of Silicon Valley, and helping them find pathways into technology jobs. Include was sort of founded from that perspective, that after 4 or 5 years of running these events, talking with companies, companies showing up, being intentional, and not enough people being hired. And so Leanne's been sort of talking about that problem for the last couple of years to me. And since I had some spare time and was looking for a test case of can we build a company for money where it's not my deep tech, not my deep knowledge and passion, but can I get into this and help her solve this and build this solution to the problem. And so what we got into was finding that a lot of the hiring managers at technology companies, a lot of you are hiring managers for your teams. A lot of especially the IT tech recruiters, they recruit by a handful of signals. They come from a handful of universities, they've worked for a handful of companies, their CS degree is specific, and when a candidate falls outside of that pattern, despite the interest or intention, or even in many cases there's ratios of hiring pipelines, still not enough people coming through these events and the Lesbians Who Tech events were being hired. So includeio is sort of our view towards solving that. And it is about sort of some of the background of this. How do we create companies that reflect the people that are in the country where it operates, that are its customers, Diversity and inclusion means different things all over the world. In the US, it's got its own specific meaning. It's a major topic right now. If you're paying any attention to what's going on in San Francisco, and not only in all the Uber kind of things, but also with all the VC stuff, this is a major, major problem around gender and LGBTQ. So how do you change that topic? How do you change the face of technology? And there's something going on right now that actually makes this just a general business problem. Not only statistically is it are companies more profitable when they have a much broader set of diverse workers. McKinsey says it, Bain says it, every data point says that. But the other reality is that by 2020, there's going to be millions of open tech jobs. And if you keep hiring from the same patterns, you're going to find yourself without enough team to accomplish your mission for your company or for your team. And so when you get into things as more and more platforms enable sort of commoditization of things like pulling from 4 or 5 APIs on the machine learning side in the SAP Leonardo platform, you're going to get less and less need for architects and CS degreed engineers and those who functionally understand how to make things wire together and have the outcome, because a lot of the layer, as we all know, is getting commoditized or at least accessible via platforms and APIs. We also know in the US that there's this big overlap between those who are diverse and those who are going through non-traditional educational pathways to gain their technical skills. These are either young people coming out of university or coming out of university or actually choosing not to go to the university and doing this in a different pathway. It's those who have been out of the workforce for some time. Maybe they had a child. Maybe they have a CS degree from 10 years ago, but they don't have the current skills of the new stacks and progressive stacks that are happening right now. So these online environments, like we were talking about before, like Coursera and others, the actual boot camp, there's around 175 in the US. And no one's saying they're going to bring out amazing engineers in 3 months. What they're doing is giving a foundational starting point on a very specific stack to enable them to move into areas and technical roles that actually increase their income and give them an access to different pathways than they would have had before. And there's a huge overlap between diverse candidates and those, because they often feel out of place in the typical CS program of MIT or Stanford. The statistics of those that are not straight white dudes, they're actually quite small. So, in fact, 60% of technical talent are attaining skills from non-traditional educational pathways in the US, and that number is growing. Some of them are having problems. It's a new concept. Some are going out of business because they can't find sustainable business models. But what it means is there's a major interest, not only from the employer side, but also from the candidate side and the people side. Now, how do we actually solve that problem we talked about before, which is there's interest, there's people coming through, but how do we help the companies really get past their typical patterns of hiring? And so that's what includeio is designed to do. So I'm going to try to play a video. We don't know if it's going to work, but it's pretty cool. Maybe it's just my sound.
There's going to be 1 million open jobs by 2020. This is a huge crisis that companies have to figure out.
It's an amazing time to think about the talent of our country, because one of the greatest things about the United States is the diversity.
So at Facebook, these are the humans. They're 48% white, 46% Asian, 3% Hispanic, 1% black. But maybe Twitter's different. No. 1% black. 1% black.
And we really saw this pain point around this growth of non-traditional talent. People were getting their skills from online education, from boot camps, and yet a lot of the tech companies were literally just not hiring from them.
I've been an engineer for 15 years, and I've never worked with a female engineer. If you want to diversify who you're hiring, you have to go to the places that they're diverse. And the boot camps, you walk in, and it's just diverse.
The boot camp thing everyone's scared of, because do we have the resources to then support that
talking about inclusivity is to actually have
A way to do it.
yeah. And a long-term view is to change the way that technical skills are validated internally.
Our networks sort of lend ourselves to refer people that look like us. We are scaling relationships, human connections, through peer-to-peer mentoring to get that validation people need to get the job they deserve. So companies can build their best team.
And then bam, it's so awesome.
Awesome,
It's
great.
like just exactly what the right now.
It's not about charity, it's about prosperity.
So you can feel the mission that is behind this. Let me turn this off so something else doesn't play. You can feel the mission that's really behind the people behind this. But this is not a nonprofit. This is a for-profit business. It's a mission-driven business, but its focus is on really how to help underrepresented technologists and those coming through that process, boot camp grads, diverse and non-traditional, and help them find pathways into jobs. So how do we do that? So Include is a recruiting platform and a retention platform and a community. What we do is we actually have a network of thousands of senior engineers who are today in a sort of a volunteer mode. They come from this network of all the other organizations that she has behind her. But many of our hiring partners are also bringing on some of their team members. When they're hiring 4 or 5 people in a team, they'll put on 4 or 5 of their best people in as skills validators. And so we call it mini mentoring. What they're actually doing is being matched. We've got a relatively simple matching algo, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. We intend to improve that through our relationship with what's coming with SAP. They're actually, when you heard her say about creating a new proxy credential, what we're talking about is what would happen inside. You know, when my company, we were 40 people, and I got a stack of CVs, I'd go to my CTO and my VP engineering or whoever, my data scientist, and say, help me pick the top 3 or 4 of these who we should do the Skype interview and then bring in, and then the rest of the process from there. We're not going to try and fix that, right? The companies do their own ways of validating someone's skills and capabilities and whether they're a cultural fit. We're not yet trying to get into that topic, but how do we get them through the pipeline more easily? And so overcome some of the challenges that IT recruiters and initial hiring managers, those kind of early in the process, that's the first place we're starting. But we do think that if we can use the data around this, and we'll be feeding a ton of data back into this and analyzing that and understanding what actually leads to hires of those who don't fit the typical pattern, we actually really can eliminate risk for companies in the process of doing this. So big problem, I've already talked about that. The process, the simple sort of walking skeleton of what happens, nothing special here, and it's a recruiting platform, right? They create a profile, they add projects. This is really important. So we make it easy to OAuth in GitHub and Kaggle and wherever all of their professional stuff lives, right? If they can add those kind of things. In some industries they can't, so we're helping to find projects and other ways of doing that. The really important part here happens at the matching part. So we're actually, when someone has sort of passed through, we've got a lot of hand-holding that gets people to step 3. There's a lot of people behind it, but the matching algorithm will connect them with others who sort of are senior or above. There's also peer level feedback, and those that have been validated and been sort of giving that thumbs up are being pushed out into our hiring partners in a curated way, and we're getting people hired. We're getting people through, and we do still have a success fee on our model because we're actually passing some of that back into the community, into all the organizations that are around this. It's a massive set of organizations around this that we sort of pass the funds back in through. We maintain profit as well. We make sure that we contribute to the overall problem space because this is a $1 billion problem. If the number of people continue to increase in terms of demand versus supply, companies are going to have a real problem. So let me give you an example. Lori, she's actually one of our team members, but she's a candidate and a mentor. She's young. She's got a CS degree. She was not a great engineer. She went through the Edie Windsor coding program, and so got a lot more deep in the JavaScript full stack. And she came on with us as an engineer and also as sort of a technical PM. So she creates a profile, basic information, adds work expertise, all the skills. We do have also a partnership with LinkedIn where they can OAuth with LinkedIn and OAuth with other things to add the project. And here's the piece that actually most companies are unwilling to do. A few more are getting information like this. That they call it demographics, but we're specific. We allow people to get hired for who they really are, and those who want to identify specifically who they are, then they're able to here. They don't have to. They can skip it completely. But what we find is that a lot of companies, actually hiring teams, will say, you know what, we're looking to improve the number of women of color in this team. We hear that from hiring managers. We hear it less from the recruiters because they're a little afraid to say that. But the reality is, those of you who have teams, you know, like, we want to improve the quality of our team by having a different set and more diverse set of people. So hiring managers directly are working with this product, and we're helping them to sort of skirt the politically correct IT recruiting process and to help bring people straight into the roles. Profile exists, and of course they're able to then, in her case, she's both a mentor and a mentee, a candidate. So she's able to see her connections with her mentors, and those who are giving her feedback and validations. She can communicate with them directly, and they can communicate with her. Again, these don't have to be long-term relationships, but we find that around 30% actually turn into long-term relationships. But they're always professional. We always keep the context of the profile in place. Anytime they update a profile, an event goes out, sends a notification to both parties. So there's a reason to reconnect about something. We use a very simple matching algo right now, because really it's just based on a few things. It's a dating algorithm, even though that's not our intention. But the reality is it's based on characteristics, on values. Geography plays a role, but to a lesser extent, especially if they're willing to relocate. We will be improving that. We've been building for about 7 months, so we're still relatively young in the development of the product. On the mentor side, you know, they do a similar thing. They can also indicate if they want to be in the pool of candidates, but mainly they're about sort of being matched with companies, and we have lead mentors who drive them forward and engage them, mentor cohorts, and so we do a lot of work around helping get validations onto the profiles, because it actually adds a profile photo of their skills validator on the profile of the candidate. So it improves it with time as they have more and more validations. And when you're a young black woman from Kansas City and you've gotten a senior Google engineer giving you like a thumbs up, that helps a hell of a lot when you're getting through a process. The other side of this is sort of the matching part of this, the recommendations. We are doing that in a way, again, based on that sort of rather simple algo right now, but it connects those with similar profiles and characteristics, and so no one never has an overwhelming amount, always 3 at one time. They can view a profile and choose to accept them. If they accept, they don't have to communicate at all or do anything other than about a 10-minute process. This is actually what they're seeing, and we expect this to improve over time, but they can give feedback to hiring managers, either at their own company or others. Simply rate them. Would they recommend them for an interview, and then save notes about their thoughts that they may want to come back to later. We've got Twilio built in for all the ongoing chat communication, so it's real-time communications if they're both online, or all the right kind of notifications that go back out. So searching is what you might expect, and I'll talk about our tech stack in a second, but you can search by all validated candidates in a bunch of different technical fields, so it helps the hiring managers say, I'm looking for only those who have been validated. And for us, it kind of gives us an interesting way of doing this. If we have, the KPI is driving in really high quality mentors, because by that, they match with the highest quality candidates, and those get curated out and sort of brought up to the top, and we help. They're the most likely to get jobs more quickly. The second set of those, really the bottom 90%, are ones that we work with in today a very manual way, but we want to do a lot more automated way, which I'll talk about in just a moment. How am I on time? Am I good? Cool, good. All right, so the tech stack, we're built full stack JavaScript. We've chosen React, which has been in a lot of discussion lately about the whole BSD plus patents thing lately. But anyway, React, Redux, and then our API down to Node.js. We built from the start with a modular structure. It's a lot slower to develop for a startup by putting an API in the middle, and especially it's some challenges we face. We even had sort of not enough crossover in the front and back team to have that go smoothly. And a lot of companies don't start that way. But the reality is that we intend this to be to integrate into every applicant tracking system that exists for those who want to, so that they actually probably wouldn't even be using our front end. So our front end just consumes everything from the back end, and it's accessible for integration into ATS and other HR, sort of HR tech tools. We're pushing everything out into Elastic, which Elastic is our search interface, and that's where we're doing, really the hiring manager's interface with this, and so that's all happening completely autonomously. We're running on Heroku because everyone starts there. So we're actually right now then in a process of looking at how we make that transition over into a more mature platform. AWS is where we were heading, but the reality is that many of our clients, like Bank of America, Ernst & Young, some of the Walmart or any of their vendors will not buy or work with a product that's based on AWS. So we need to make other choices. And a lot of our sponsors, we have growth stage startups and then a ton of really, really big companies that are our hiring partners. And so we had to make, we have to make some solid choices on how we carry this out. And so because of my background and because of with SAP and because of Moya and our relationship with SAP in a long-term way, I was introduced to Peter Giza and Bjorn Gurka, and so I spent time with them talking about how we turn this into something that can live on top of the SAP cloud and begin to take full advantage of many more of the capabilities that are coming out of this. And so we're just talking about things like CV matching and a lot of the things that just sort of exist via API. So they have selected us as a special project. We'll have some team from some of Peter's team who are actually in the process of helping us to carry that forward. It's complex to do that because, like right now, Elastic is not supported directly. How are we going to handle some of the things that are going on? So we actually right now have a team that are working with their team, trying to deploy our backend there and figure out what's going to blow up and go wrong, and look for opportunities of how to improve our architecture. With again, I get the benefit from really senior architects in the platform team to do that. What's next for us? Improve matching. As we get, we have tens of thousands of candidates. As we get many, many more, we want to really improve the matching part of this, and so we want to begin to take more advantage of more impressive machine learning and recommendations. We want to move into, as we have a lot of data and we know the hires that are coming through, getting into algorithmic analysis of profiles that are getting hired and why, and be able to then sort of inform an AI that can guide a user to have a profile that is more complete, or guide them to, we work with several major open source initiatives that have programs that are projects that are really diverse friendly, and so they may guide them towards projects that actually that would improve their presentation of a skill they say they have, but no demonstration of it on their profile. we are headed towards success factors, probably field glass first, but then success factors integration. And this is down the pathway. Probably it'll take us 6 months to get there fully onto the SAP Cloud with what we have now, and then begin to explore how we take more advantage of some of the other things. And then something kind of cool, we started a process with, we have around 150 of the boot camps who are really trying to turn what they have into a credential. And so we've started an idea of, could we use a blockchain for that to sort of be instead of another way of sort of building your pedigree that is immutable by a consortium of participants where we can sort of vet them. That would be an open source project. And at the same time, and we got actually someone at Airbus has been advising me on that because they have a similar credentials process for pilots. Well, turns out in Innovation Center is something called TrueRec that Torsten Zuba is running. So I'm in conversations with Torsten about actually leveraging that as part of, and it would be an open source initiative, but again, adding a credentials blockchain component that would actually enable more, because every step one takes, every event one attends, if we have them as part of the consortium and can vet and validate the quality of the content, can add to one's profile. So more and more we're about making data drive this process, whereas right now it'll always have a human connection and a human component to it. Questions? Yeah, great.
Thanks for the talk. I have a couple of rookie questions. First of all, what's the term boot camp referring to? Is this like a training camp where people are mixed together and
it's
try out neural networks and code away? Or?
So coding boot camps in the U.S. are really big. They're getting bigger here as well. They're typically on-site, 3 to 6 month programs. They often choose a specific stack. So it may be a full stack JavaScript or Ruby on Rails and whatever. And they're taking someone with minimal engineering or developer skills and taking them through a very rigorous and intense process of gaining a foundation set of skills that can help them move into a junior position into organizations. Many companies are doing this right now too, like Snap. They have a fellowship program that has around 1,500 developers in it. It's their own boot camp. And out of that, and they pay them, so it's free. It's hard to get in. And at the end of the process, they hire some, 10 or 15% of those as people that, as true engineers.
So boot camps usually created by companies because they want to see who's really skilled.
Not usually. Actually, that's actually happening secondly. If you compare it to the like Techstars and YCOM, and then every company in the world sort of doing their own accelerator. It's sort of a similar concept. The growth of coding boot camps in the U.S. has been they're privately owned or privately run, some by the large educational groups and some that are startups. And now many companies are beginning to do the same thing and partner with them to help sort of bring more talent their way.
And talents participating, would they usually pay a fee to enter this, or is it usually free?
It depends. The common model is they pay a small fee of around 10 grand. There's then a placement fee on the other side. So that's sort of the foundation of the typical business model. Honestly, some of the biggest ones have just gone out of business because they can't quite find a sustainable business model. So it's figuring itself out.
Okay. So this was for my own curiosity. Sorry. Yeah. So this wasn't related directly to includeio. So I think what you do is really, really good. And my next questions aren't not criticizing you directly, but
Okay.
I just want to test the business model
Please.
behind it. So it took me quite a long time to figure out what includeio tries to solve. And I see the thing is that, what's the term,
Underrepresented?
underrepresented
Yes.
talents. So this is a key problem. They don't find a job easily because of the pipeline.
Yes.
Okay. And you're trying to solve this to put a little bit more reliability for these people in by the mentoring. So the mentoring is a key component. So if I volunteer to be a mentor mentor then? The first question is, what is in for me as a mentor?
Yeah.
That would be the first question for me.
Sure. Is there a second question also that I can answer them both?
Okay, yeah, that's the first question. So what's in for the mentor? And the second question is, why should I, as a company, trust your mentors? I mean, okay, if there is a senior Google
Fair,
thing,
yeah,
then
yeah.
the company is speaking for the,
Yeah.
is validating for the mentor, but
So,
if I don't know the mentors, then I still have a trust issue.
fair enough. And so we started with our network. So we our first 1,000 came from our community, from Leanne's community. So I've sort of been the founder for hire to build this. So from Leanne's community, and she plus again Megan Smith, the CTO of the U.S. They've got a pretty broad network, and so they brought in some of the top people that they could find who are passionate about this problem. The scalable long-term way is that our hiring partners are bringing on actually members from their hiring teams. So they can see this team, and so this happening in one division of Disney. They know this one group is going to hire 120 people in the next 6 months. So they're actually putting 50 mentors on that are in the skill areas that they're hiring for. The open recs are not even there yet. They just know they're coming. And now they're heavily involved in the process. So the hiring manager will help connect them. We help connect them. And so we have sort of little smaller subsets where all they really care about are the candidates that have been skills validated, mentored by their own people. And that probably is really the long-term mission for this, for the larger organizations. You can imagine there's some liability topics there and legal topics there, and that moves slowly. So we began the process of this with our own network. And thirdly is we have no idea, right? We're early, we're a startup, there's a foundation of this, there's early signs of it working, but can we maintain that at scale? Or how can we, like one of the things, we're working with GitHub directly on doing some signal analysis from GitHub profiles that we can then provide to mentors to more easily see and give them signal from various connected profiles about that person's code base and code skills and projects they're in. So we have to make it easier, faster, because it's really not like the typical mentor relationship. It is, to do a session takes about 10 minutes. But what's in it for them, actually, and this is actually from a lot of this came to us, is that companies are seeing this as a retention tool because they're enabling their internal team members to be involved in this as part of their kind of contribution to the culture of that company. They actually get to be involved. They see that company cares. And so we're surprised by how many of them are actually seeing this as a retention tool by bringing mentors into the process. So, and it sort of feels good when you know you've helped someone get a job.
Okay, I see. Thanks for answering that.
So yeah, I mean, just to riff on that and add a few comments. I mean, as a senior level engineer in SAP, it's my job to think of the company just as much as the technology. So part of that is recognizing that a company does better with a diverse workforce. There's a clear profit to that. So as a senior engineer, it's part of my job to engage in the community, and part of that is doing talks like today. But also part of that is to be out there and be a mentor. And even if some of these people come through this process back to SAP, that drives bottom line benefit that I'm responsible for as a senior engineer. So that it's just completing that circle. On another point, and this is where some of the blockchain stuff comes in, obviously the initial skill set that you're looking for is public profile, GitHub and so on. Now, especially in underrepresented talent, especially with women, there isn't always the time and space to have a public contribution. It may only be a contribution to something they're being paid to do full-time within a company. And I think there the blockchain thing, the TrueRec idea is particularly important, because then you can have somebody possibly from their existing company recommending them for something they've done. But blockchain connection means that there's a traceable link back to the recommender and there's accountability back to the recommender.
Yeah.
So that then, if someone falsifies anything, that has a reputational impact on the person who's done the recommending. So I think that the blockchain idea is something that can really tie that and actually make it work a lot better for the underrepresented people.
That actually came out of it. We've got 2 major clients that are in the defense industry, so they don't have GitHub profiles. There's nothing, the validation, but do it in a way that can still enable the security requirements of some of these larger companies. And so that's just getting started, that piece of it, but we believe it can be a really strong point. Yes?
First of all, thank you very much. I think it's a big opportunity for all other industries as well, not just tech, also public sector and so on and so on. What I'm curious about is, so far I understood you win the trust of the new upcoming employees about your community and about your story that you have, but I still ask myself, it's very private to open themselves, what kind of sexuality you have, and stuff like this. So how do you win this trust? My first question. My second question is, how actually does your revenue model look like? What kind of revenue streams do you have, and where do you want to, or where do you see yourself in 2020 with your company?
Sure. So so first is the trust aspect, and again, I don't think there's a few other recruiting platforms that are trying to pull something like this off a little bit, but they don't have the credibility, and that's one thing that Liana Pittsford is known throughout the United States. Megan Smith is known throughout the United States. Kara Swisher, she's involved in an investor. So part of it is the leadership and the credibility they have of building for-profit, sustainable businesses that are mission-driven, and they give a shit. And that's known by a lot of people. So that's not the scalable answer. That's the starting point. As we have more and more data from that, we think that we can actually help in a long-term way. The mission in a long-term way is to change the way that whole pipeline process and skills are validated happen in general, not just for those who are underrepresented. That's going to take a lot of data to do that, and a lot more work to do through some of the things that we can benefit from the machine learning side of things. But we think that there's actually, the problem scales more than just that. So there is a long-term, bigger picture view of this. And then moving past tech, we started today with the typical but smaller success fee model. There's downward pressure on that business model as HR tech is exploding, and so we see this moving into more of a subscription basis for companies, perhaps a seat-based basis. We're doing a lot of business model testing, and it's moving so damn quickly that often we find that there's a lot of competition just in HR tech anyway. So business model question is, I think, will continue to evolve. We're not quite sure. Other questions?
Thanks for the talk. Question on this page where you show that where you have them select various topics of personal identity. I'm curious if you've run that by any European hiring managers, because I could see them having almost a reaction.
So it's funny because our team, this is a U.S. focused product today. Leanne's business is in D.C. We've got engineers sort of spread around the world. I'm here. I've got some engineers in Prague. We've got Chicago, San Francisco. But we're focused right now on the U.S. Problem and willingness to have access to more data, more intentionality at companies because of all the, especially Bay Area companies and very larger organizations who are changing the way they're doing things. Intel, actually SAP, having much more intentionality in the U.S. As we're building the ability for a global product, but as we move into every new market, it's going to have a whole different set of both legal and cultural aspects. What is diverse in Israel may be very, very different than what's diverse in Germany. So I think we don't know what's going to happen after we pass the U.S. The intention is always to be a global solution, but the focus right now is very much in the U.S., probably for the next year, while we sort of figure ourselves out.
Thanks.
Others? All right, awesome, thank you. Oh, wait, yes?
You mentioned that working with AWS barriers to large scale sales. Can you elaborate on that? How are you using SAP as a solution?
Well, so we aren't yet. So one is we started on Heroku. We're working in limited scale with some of the larger companies who have, in some cases, there's certification requirements that some of the financial institutions just are uncomfortable with, and have their CIOs will not allow them to utilize solutions like this that are heavily sensitive data inside of AWS. The Walmart topic and all of their vendors is because Walmart and Amazon are in a major battle. And so Walmart actually made a mandate that they would stop buying from companies who utilize AWS. And Walmart's one of our partners. So we have to find a different solution than that. And I've been around, Retention Grid was one of the first non-SAP products running on the, what's the Berlin cloud? Yeah, Monsoon. Right, I was the first non-SAP project running on Monsoon. I've been following the SAP cloud development for a long time. I know it's been magically named Leonardo, but it's made up of a bunch of pieces that I've been connected to for a while. So when Moya brought this back up, then it made sense for us to go deeper. And luckily she got us a meeting with Bjorn and Peter, and they've taken an interest. So I think we are heading towards living on top of and moving to the SAP platform, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Okay, great, thank you.